recently made my first trip to QuakeCon this year, and in short, it was a blast. There were lots of cool things to see and people to meet.
Rest in peace, bozo.
We even got an exclusive preview of Doom: The Dark Ages, and safe to say, it was awesome. I was able to speak to some of the id Software folks about it, and I'm happy to report that they were all energized by the game's reception. They're doing some killer work, and I can't wait to see more. That said, The Dark Ages was far from the only thing that was shown at QuakeCon. We finally got confirmation that Doom Eternal would be receiving official mod support in the form of id Studio. For those of you who don't know, id Studio is the in-house toolset that id Software uses to make their games. That's also what Machine Games uses to make their titles, including the upcoming Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. It's like the creation kit for those of you familiar with modding Skyrim and Fallout 4. Same idea.
Oh no!
Right now, id Studio is still in beta, but the community is already coming up with some pretty cool stuff. Look forward to some coverage on that front in the future. Today's video focuses on what was arguably the biggest reveal at QuakeCon, an updated re-release of the first two Doom games appropriately titled Doom plus Doom 2. Brought to us by the fine folks at Night Dive Studios, this new package comes with a whole heap of goodies. A new programming standard, a mod browser, a vault full of never-before-seen content. Andrew Holschultz's remake of the first soundtrack made it in, and he even remade the tracks from Doom 2. That's the good stuff right there. But that all pales in comparison to what else they included in this thing. An all-new official expansion called Legacy of Rust, a joint venture created by folks from id Software, Machine Games, and Night Dive. It's the first official expansion since No Rest for the Living, and the first to feature new weapons and enemies since Doom 2. That alone makes it a pretty big deal, but before we get any further, I think it's important to talk about this new port a little bit first. Unlike the 2019 releases, which were built on Unity, this new port, which I'll call Kex Doom, is built off of a fork of Chocolate Doom called Rum and Raisin Doom. To put it short, Chocolate Doom is a source port designed to preserve the look and feel of the original 1990s Doom experience. No free look, no texture filtering, no ray tracing, just plain old Doom, like Mom used to make. Most offshoots of Chocolate Doom operate along similar lines, but tend to add more functionality, like supporting modern resolutions. Rum and Raisin Doom is one of these Vanilla Plus ports, and it was licensed by id Software to create Kex Doom. The creator of Rum and Raisin, one Ethan Watson, aka Gooberman, made two of the maps in Legacy of Rust as well. E2M1 Second Coming and E2M3 Disunion, two of the more challenging maps to be sure. So with all of that in mind, if you're one of those special people who play GZ Doom with its default settings enabled, Kex Doom might be a shock to your system. It's dark, it's chunky, it's a little rough around the edges, it's how your dad remembers Doom, and it's great. You can play Legacy of Rust with GZ Doom, but at the time of writing, it's not 100% compatible. The main things that are missing are a couple of skyboxes and the intermission screens. I should also point out that the montage at the start of this video was recorded in GZ Doom because it has more console commands that you can play around with. Everything else was recorded in Kex Doom. You might notice that messages are cut off in some of the footage, but that was a recording mistake on my end. There's something more authentic about how Kex Doom feels in comparison. I don't know how else to describe it. There's nothing wrong with all the extra gubbins that GZ Doom comes with, but I've genuinely fallen in love with this port's scaled-down approach. It's liberating in a way. I can't fret over something that's not even an option. Finally, inner peace. Let's talk premise. Now, normally I'd start off by providing an overview of what kind of game this is, but it's Doom. You know what the deal is. If you don't, then just watch Civi's Pro Doom series and come back here when you're done.
Doom sucks!
So let's talk premise instead. Legacy of Rust puts you back in the shoes of the OG Green Space Marine. Once again, the UAC is up to no good, and it's your job to clean up after them. In order to do this, you need to travel to a new region of hell called Visaga's Rest. This place is reportedly so bad that it's almost completely devoid of all demonic life, the exception being the so-called ones beneath. But of course, corporate exploration and colonization of a new hell dimension? What could possibly go wrong?
What happened to your eyes?
Where we're going, we won't need eyes to see.
Say, whose idea was it to include a bunch of new stuff into this expansion anyways? The Quake remasters came with new levels too, but they didn't have new weapons or monsters on top of that. Well, in preparation for this video, I reached out to two of the main brains behind Legacy of Rust, SVKaiser and Xaser Acheron. According to them, Legacy was going to feature unused assets from the beginning, but the sheer amount of high-quality stuff they found in its archives proved to be an unexpected boon. The vault content was an absolute goldmine. It's crazy how many shipping quality textures and sprites never got used in the final game, some of which the community had never seen before. The extra resources gave me way more freedom than expected when it came to crafting a new monster roster, so I just sorta rolled with it. This is the kind of stuff I love to see happen with legendary franchises like Doom. Seeing things realized in-game that previously only existed in magazines or fan sites is awesome. It reminds me of the dig site / cutting room floor content that 343 brought back for the Master Chief Collection. More studios should do this. Alright, that's enough time yapping about this. Let's move on to death and destruction. Legacy of Rust introduces two new weapons to the roster, the Incinerator and the Calamity Blade. Owing to development deadlines, these two ended up replacing the Plasma Gun and BFG respectively, but they're pretty fun nonetheless. As the name implies, the Incinerator is a fancy flamethrower. Now, conventional video game logic would tell you that a flamethrower should be used for close-range engagements. That is absolutely not the case here. This bad boy does some gnarly area of effect damage that'll chip away at your health for a couple of seconds. As such, the best way to use the Incinerator is at medium range with short, controlled bursts. It doesn't take a lot to cremate low-tier enemies like zombies and imps, so moderating your supply will pay dividends in the future. The introduction of the Calamity Blade completes the holy trinity of Doom's superweapons. This little beauty is functionally identical to the Destroyer Blade Ballista from Doom Eternal. Well, almost identical. A fully charged ballista can wipe out a decent number of enemies in one blast, but the Calamity Blade can wipe out entire rooms. The waves of energy that it shoots out will pierce through anything that stands in its way, and it's a guaranteed one-hit kill on anything weaker than a Baron of Hell. Its major downside is that it doesn't auto-aim, so you've got to be on the same level as the bad guys for it to work. That's a bit annoying when you're up against a gaggle of ghouls and cacodemons, but it would be too overpowered if you could do a full screen wipe. The Calamity Blade uses the same ammo type as the Incinerator, so you can just switch to that if the situation calls for it. Let's talk monsters. First up is the Ghoul. For those familiar with Doom's development, you may recognize the Ghoul as being based off of an earlier version of the Lost Soul. Back then, the Lost Soul had a, quote, psychic attack that would damage the player. Ghouls ditched this in favor of having a projectile attack instead. I like the Ghouls. They're not as annoying as their forebears, and they can be taken out with a single shotgun blast. They remind me of something that you would see in Heretic or Hexen. Nice addition to the roster. Up next is the Banshee. What's it about?
My main goal is to blow up.
Lots of shooters have suicide bomber enemies that are annoying to deal with, but Banshees aren't too bad. Their screams of agony could be toned down a bit though. These guys are based off of an unused concept for an environmental enemy that would spawn lost souls. You can guess where they retooled that idea. They're decent. You could do some evil spawn traps with these guys. Moving on from there, we've got a new zombified human enemy, the Shock Trooper. These are the new glass cannons of Doom. Easy to kill, but their plasma bolts pack a punch. At least with Arachnotrons, you knew that they were in the area because of how big and loud they are. Not so with Shock Troopers. I can imagine modders taking advantage of that fact already. I do appreciate Legacy of Rust's self-awareness in this matter. Now let's talk about the poster boy for this expansion, the Vasago. These bad boys are presumably the ones beneath mentioned in the official write-up. As you can see, Vasagos are modified Barons of Hell. Same amount of health, same AI, all that good stuff. Aside from their killer design, what separates the two is how a Vasago deals damage. You see, their projectiles are the same as the Incinerators, a little fireball with an area of effect that deals damage over time. This one distinguishing factor makes Vasagos more dangerous than their highborn brethren. Getting stuck in a tight corner with a Baron isn't ideal, but it's manageable if your strafing skills are on point. The Saugos don't play that game since they can just set the whole corner on fire. These are my favorite new monsters out of the bunch. I love their design, their death animation, the fact that they're positioned as the primary antagonists of the expansion. Just a solid monster through and through. You know what classic Doom needed more of? Hit scanners. Said no one ever. So anyways, here's the Mindweaver. Like the Arachnotron, it's a scaled-down spider mastermind, but it's kept the full auto shotgun that its mom uses. Great. Awesome. Super cool and rad. Thanks for that. I can't wait to play maps where Mindweavers and Arachnotrons are mixed together like a bowl of Skittles and M&Ms. Yay! Last, and arguably least, is the Tyrant, a scaled-down cyber demon with a quarter of the health of its bigger brother. I don't mind these guys in theory, it's cool to have a new rocket-shooting enemy, but it's weird to me that they only appear in one level. Seems like a missed opportunity to me. Based off the name, I'm guessing they're Classic Doom's take on the Tyrants from Doom Eternal. An interesting idea, but the execution is a bit messy in my opinion. All things being equal, I really like the new monsters that were added with Legacy of Rust. They each have their own thing going for them, and it's just awesome to have new pieces on the board to play against. I'm very curious to see how they'll be used by the community going forward. Let's move on. If you're familiar with the classics, then you'll immediately notice that there's a lot more going on in these new maps. Previously unused assets can be found mixed in with the stock Doom 2 texture set. Like, check out this pile of unalived Marines. That's metal as heck. Sometimes you come across a mod or re-release that includes cut content that's of questionable quality. Whether it's bringing back cut NPCs or quests, their inclusion can feel out of sync with the rest of the game. Thankfully, Legacy of Rust doesn't have this problem outside of 2 or 3 instances. All of the previously unused content that's been added feel like natural additions. Like the only reason they were cut to begin with was to save disk space, and not because they were inherently bad. There's a ton more that you can look through in the id Vault, including some stuff that I can't believe they entertained at one point. Man, the 90s were wild. Beyond the introduction of cut content, Legacy of Rust has some really cool bits of environmental storytelling on top of it. Bloody footprints heading down an eerie corridor, a squad of dead Marines surrounding a soul sphere, the aftermath of a big battle. It really drives home the notion that the UAC was suddenly and violently taken out by a superior force.
Damn, that's one doomed space marine.
The visual language of this expansion is very appealing to me. There were multiple instances where I stood still to take in the ambiance, and that's not something I do very often. Just about every map stands out and has its own distinct look and feel. There's your overrun tech bays, your twisted factories, your sinister cathedrals, your dark dungeons. It can come off like a greatest hits compilation like Halo Reach, but I'm not going to hold that against it. There is one map that stuck out to me like a sore thumb when I initially played it, but there's actually a pretty cool story behind it. The map in question is E2M4 Echoes of Pain. Echoes of Pain is a Kaiser map, and here's what he had to say about it. Echoes of Pain was a struggle because it was not only the first map that I made for Legacy of Rust, but was also the first map in 20-something years that I was making for Doom. It took a while to get back into the groove of things. It also took a while to come up with a decent idea for the level, but I ended up going with the Dr. Sleep theme, which was a common thing I did with my maps back in the early 2000s. Dr. Sleep, real name John Anderson, was a game developer who got his start making maps for projects like the master levels for Doom 2 and Thy Flesh Consumed. He made a series of maps inspired by Dante Alighieri's Inferno from the Divine Comedy. They were highly regarded, and old heads like Kaiser often credit Anderson as a major influence. Dr. Sleep's Inferno is available in the mod browser, and it's definitely worth going through if you haven't already. There is an aspect of Legacy of Rust that feels moddy at times. What do I mean by that? Well, have you ever played a mod that felt more like a tech demo for potential employers than anything else? Nothing wrong with that, mind you. The road from part-time modder to professional developer is a long and storied one. It's just that sometimes modders will add stuff because they can. Take Fallout the Frontier, for instance. There was little to no effort made to ensure that what was added conformed to the existing aesthetic. There are a few occasions where Legacy approaches the same line, but it never crosses it. The game's audio is your standard Doom affair. There aren't a ton of new sound effects, but those that do exist work well with the rest. The meat of Legacy's audio comes in the form of new music by Xaser Acheron. That's right, he's a musician as well. He's a lot of stuff, actually. Jeez Louise. One of the things that I like most about the classic Doom soundtracks is that they're not exclusively heavy metal. That's the prevailing style, sure, but you've also got tracks that are more funky or ethereal. The classics were always more diverse than I think they get credit for, and Xaser continues that trend in Legacy of Rust. Here's what he had to say about his inspirations. I drew heavy inspiration from all sorts of Doom mod music, from the 90s to today. It's sort of meant as a supercut of Doom music styles, with bits of Jimmy Paddock, Mark Clem, and OG composers like Lee Jackson thrown into the mix. I didn't try to stick too hard to the idea of Doom must be 100% metal, cause the original game didn't do that either. Fret not, metalheads, there's plenty here for you as well. The track They're All Going to Laugh at You is a great reimagining of Mick Gordon's The Only Thing They Fear Is You. Let's listen to that and some of my other favorites for a spell. Solid work all around, and it definitely holds up to the classics in my opinion. Now that we've covered how Legacy looks and sounds, let's talk about how it plays. Now, I've played my fair share of classic Doom over the years, but I wouldn't describe myself as a gameplay god like Zero Master. That said, I do enjoy a good challenge, and Legacy of Rust offers that in spades. For better or worse, a lot of the community will automatically default to playing a new WAD on ultraviolence. If you're one of those people, just know that Legacy won't be holding back any of its punches. The folks who made this assume that you've played Doom before, so don't be looking for something that you can casually breeze through if you're playing on UV. Not even co-op is gonna save you.
Oh gosh. There's so many chain gunners.
Is this Plutonia?
Outside of that, the same old rules still apply. Arch vials, pain elementals, and hit scanners are your primary targets. Everyone else is secondary. The level designers can and will troll you with less than ideal enemy placement. Be smart, take it slow, and don't stand in front of a door after activating it. You know, come to think of it, there's some challenge spikes in here that feel oddly familiar. Everyone's got their own opinions on what makes a good Doom map, and I'm no different. So for what it's worth, I find most of the maps in Legacy to be fun. There's only 2 or 3 that I didn't really jam with, but I'd like to focus on some highlights instead. To start off, we've got E1M1 Scargate. This is a Kaiser map, though the Hell Portal was made by Xaser. This map comes from an old sketch that Kaiser drew back in 2009, the day before he had a job interview with id Software, funnily enough. The sketch stuck with him all these years, and now it's part of an official expansion. Talk about a wholesome outcome. I imagine it's intimidating to be the one to come up with a starting map for a new Doom expansion. Hangar and Entryway are both mythic tier maps in the FPS Legendarium after all. Well, for my part, I think Scargate is totally rad. The flow of the map and the rhythm of the combat is just right. Something about fighting off hordes of zombies and low-tier demons inside of sci-fi installations tickles my neural processing unit. The Hell Portal by itself would have earned this map high marks, but the nods to the Doom Bible sealed the deal for me. The cherry on top is the first elevator you go through. I wanted to go with an entryway/attack vibe with a similar flow of Quake's E1M1. The lift part of the level was inspired by that. Amazing. No notes. Up next is E1M2, Sanguine Wastes. This is a Xaser map, and Legacy of Rust gently, yet firmly tears off the training wheels with this one. Just swarms of enemies and devious little traps. If your circle strafing skills are lacking, then this map will punish you for it. It's a great level, and I love the idea of a blood dam, or Hemo-Electric Dam as the map was initially named. Moving on, we've got E2M1, Second Coming. As I mentioned earlier, this is one of Ethan Watson's maps, and he is indeed a huge goober for making it. It's tough, almost unfairly so. Starting a new episode off with Hell Knights, Visagos, a Cyber Demon, and teleporting Revenants is diabolical. At least I can telefrag the Cyber Demon, so thanks for that, I guess. But genuinely, this is the kind of challenging map that I like to tackle. Really cool design, and I love the laser tag area. It takes me back to a simpler time. From there, we've got the penultimate map of the expansion, E2M6, Soul Silo. Again, this is one of the handful of maps not made by Kaiser or Xaser. Instead, it was designed by an id Software employee named Kevin Dunlop. Don't know too much about the guy, but according to LinkedIn, he worked at Machine Games for a while before moving to id, so that's pretty cool. His profile says that he's the environment art map lead, which, if accurate, makes sense because Soul Silo is one of the most visually unique levels in the expansion. I don't want to show off too much, but if you know, you know. Good luck pistol starting this map if that's your jam. You're a stronger person than I. There's one more map that I want to give a special mention to because it is something else. E1M6, The Coiled City. This is, without a doubt, the most difficult classic Doom map I've ever played, and I love it. I've seen The Coiled City get flack online for being a gimmick map, but that's not how I see it at all. It's an endurance run. It's a skill check. It's one of the coolest looking maps I've ever seen made in this engine. I mean, just look at this. Look at that skybox. It's from PlayStation Doom. Okay, brief tangent here, but PlayStation Doom is awesome. According to Kaiser, he wanted to do something with PlayStation Doom like how Night Dive released Quake 2 64, but nothing ever came of it. So to the powers that be, I say one thing. Let Night Dive cook. It's like the last major version of Doom that has yet to get a modern release. Come on now, don't be that guy. Getting back on track, The Coiled City was made by Xaser. If you're like me, you may have gotten the impression that he's a From Software fan, and you'd be right. Coiled City is totally FromSoft, both in its general design, an imposing non-linear hellscape, and its approach to gameplay. The die, learn, and try again concept is totally my thing, love it or hate it. Well, as a fellow FromSoft enjoyer, I loved it. It electrifies the same circuit board that I use when I play those games. Great job, my dude. Aside from things I mentioned earlier, I think Legacy of Rust is fantastic. It's fun, it's challenging, and I think all the new stuff is pretty dope. It's a solid expansion and well worth playing through. Keck's Doom itself has some issues, but thankfully most of them are pretty minor. Music volumes being out of whack, monsters getting stuck on each other after being resurrected, stuff like that. Full disclosure, I recorded this footage prior to the release of Update 1, and thankfully that patch improved some of the things I was going to mention, but there's still one glaring issue that remains. Having a built-in mod browser is awesome. It's a quick and convenient way to open up 30 years of modding to a casual audience for the low cost of free $99. However, that is also this port's biggest problem. There is nothing in place to prevent someone from taking a mod that they stole and uploading it themselves. Naturally, this has caused the mod browser to be flooded with a deluge of crappy, low-effort uploads of other people's work.
Look at this! Look! 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 What the f*** is this?
Look, I don't know which dev team is responsible for managing the mod browser, but there's got to be a better way! Sorry, it's just... Sigil 2 was part of the initial lineup of mods uploaded by id, but this hero decided to do it himself too. He also credited the wrong Romero. It's getting dire here, folks. I've heard that something is being worked on to address all of this, but until then, it's up to the community to self-regulate. Thankfully, there's been some good progress on that front. Doomworld has a thread dedicated to this, and they've made a list to document which uploads are legitimate and which ones aren't. I'll leave a link for this in the description, but I want to give a quick shout out to Redneckers, Scuba Steve, Elf Alchemist, and everyone else in that thread for doing what they're doing. If you see a mod that has Bethesda Edition written at the end of it, that's the version you're looking for. That means it's been uploaded by the creator or by someone with permission, and that it's been checked for compatibility. Hear me now, believe me later, but if all these issues get fixed one way or the other, then this will be the definitive port for the casual scene. It's so close to being there. All it needs is a little more love, and we'll be golden. So that's about it for this video. In conclusion, I think Legacy of Rust is awesome and well worth playing if you haven't already. Thankfully, Doom plus Doom 2 is a free update to folks who owned one or both of the 2019 Unity ports. If for some reason you still don't own a legal copy of either, then this new release is only $10 on your platform of choice. Well worth the price in my opinion. I want to give a big shout out to Kaiser and Xaser for agreeing to answer some questions and pull back the veil a little on how this expansion came to be. There's a lot that I wasn't able to include in this video, but I've collected all their responses in a Word document that's linked in the description. Lots of fun tidbits in there. I would be remiss not to thank you for watching as well. Not sure when the next video will be, but I'll do my best to get one out every 2 months or so. If you feel inclined, leave a like, comment, share, all that other good YouTube stuff. I'd be much obliged. See y'all on the flip side.